something about it makes me happy. Doesn't matter spring or fall. Barberville's where the music is happening. I can't wait till Barberville. I can't wait, I can't wait, I can't wait.
Hi everybody, my name's Deborah West and I am the Executive Director here at the Barberville Pioneer Settlement. And today we are here with the episode number 5 in our History Matters series. Today we're going to be talking about the Underhill House. It's Volusia County's oldest brick home. And Joanna's going to take us on a tour.
Good morning and welcome to the Underhill House here at the Barberville Pioneer Settlement. Oh, the stories this house could tell.
After the Second Seminole War ended in 1842, white settlers began to move into the area that is now Central Florida. There was an Indian trail from the banks of the St. Johns River in Astor, leading east to the Tomoka Ceremonial Mounds, and then on to what was to become Daytona Beach. The white settlers used this same trail for their wagons and horses. Eventually, that trail would roughly become State Highway 40, which now leads right past our settlement.
The first settlers came to this area soon after the hostilities with the Seminoles ended. That was after the Second Seminole War. This town was originally called Midway because it was midway on the Methodist Church's Circuit Riders route, which we learned about in our video on the Methodist Church here, the Midway Methodist Church. This small community that formed here was older than what would become DeLand, the community that's now south of us, which is now a much larger city. Barberville was originally named because Mr. Barber's store, Mr. James D. Barber, had a store here, and when they brought the post office in, they then changed the name to Barberville. Eventually the community would grow. Once the railroad finally got here in 1885-86, then we had the store, we had a hotel, there were several churches, as well as the train depot. The first records show that in the early 1800s, this land was originally owned by Andrew J. Baker and his wife, Mary Jane Baker, and their 8 sons. Now, Baker emigrated to Florida coming down the St. Johns River. He was from South Carolina. He came down here on January 1st, 1855. Interestingly enough, he came down on the steamship, the Elijah Baker. He took it all the way down to Enterprise, which is south of DeLand, all the way down on the lake down there. And then eventually he came back up to Volusia and then bought this 119 acres here in what was to become Barberville. Mr. Baker received his patent on May 1st, 1855 for this land. Now, we do not know exactly where he built his house, but he did set the very first orange grove that we had in this area. When the Baker family was ready to move on to Spring Garden, he sold this land to William Turner in 1858 with William and his wife, Mary Ann Ivy. Turner really liked this property because it had really good drainage. It was an excellent place to grow corn every day of the year. And corn being one of their main food sources, it was very advantageous to be able to do that. He loved the property mainly also because it was on the road that went from Volusia to DeLand, thinking that this road would still be here today, which of course it is not. But he also decided then to move to Spring Garden. And when he did that in 1867, he sold this 119 acres to Joseph Underhill.
Joseph, with his wife Lucretia Bird Underhill and their newborn son Thomas, they were from the Wiregrass area of southern Georgia and came down to Florida in 1850. They first settled over in Enterprise, where Joseph had gotten a patent for 160 acres, first of which he cleared 5 and built a church before ever building a house. Well, William Turner moved to Enterprise about 5 years later in 1855 and became acquainted with the Underhills. About 10 years later, on February 23, 1868, Turner sold the property to Joseph Underhill. See, Turner had, during the War of Northern Aggression, he had married a witch widow by the name of Mrs. Hickenbottoms and was moving to St. Augustine and had no further need of his lands in Volusia County.
It would be another 12 years before Joseph would build this house after he bought the land. Joseph had started from very humble beginnings, and he worked himself up to be one of the wealthiest men here in Volusia County. He had thousands of head of cattle. He had 2 orange groves out on Tick Island, which is out in Lake Woodruff. He had, the only herd of sheep here in Volusia County. He was a county commissioner. He was a deputy sheriff. He was a mason. He was well respected within this community and thought very highly of, both he and his wife, Lucretia. So then it came time to build the house. Now, the road that went through this property that Joseph had purchased went down to Deep Creek, and there they found a deposit of clay that they would be able to make the bricks for this house. They dug it up, they fired it there, and then they hauled those bricks back here. And each one of these bricks was handmade by Joseph along with his 2 adopted sons. Now, they called them adopted, though they were not officially adopted, but if you clothe, house, feed, and work with 2 people that live with you all the time, you might as well call them adopted. And that was John and Isham Hall. They built made each and every one of these bricks to build this house. No one really knows why Joseph decided to build a brick house, because most of the houses in this area were simply wooden structures at that time. Some people say it was as a status symbol to show the wealth that he had attained over his lifetime. And some say that it was more Lucretia who wanted to have the brick house. But for whatever reason, they built a sturdy house. These walls are 12 inches thick, double thickness. They can repel not only the weather, and it's well insulated, but it could also repel an Indian attack. Now, Joseph went on to buy up to 160 acres that he had in this area that all surrounded the house.
Now for a little behind-the-scenes tour. Most visitors do not get to see the upstairs of the house. There are 6 rooms where John and Isham Hall and Arabelle Cohn, the Underhill's adopted children, would have lived. Well as that Mr. Lichtenstein, but more on him if you come to the second Saturdays here at the settlement for a performance. Here you can see more of the brick, but the rooms really showcase the carpentry work that was done by Frank Burmeister. Each room had a separate entrance that can only be accessed by the steep staircase on the back porch. You can see how much work we still have to do on the renovation to bring the house back to the way it was when Lucretia and Joseph lived here.
So after the Lemons had donated the money for the Barberville Central High School to be built, they actually allowed some of the teachers to be able to board or live up here on the 2nd floor in these different rooms. It made it very convenient for them to be able to just walk to work every day. In 1907, the year before Lucretia died, she sold the house to a B.F. Ward, and he later sold it to a Samuel Ed Lemon. Now, Mr. Lemon had come down from Shiloh, South Carolina to this area in 1884. He married Elizabeth Minshew, who was the daughter of William Minshew, one of the very first settlers in this area.
And Mr. Lemon was a farmer, a fern grower, like the ferns became a big industry in this area. And he became well known and wealthy in his own right. And when this house had become available, he bought it from Ward. Mr. Lemon donated the land for the Barberville Pioneer Central High School in 1919, which was part of his lands here. And a lot of the old-timers remember Odetta Coleman, who was Ed Lemon's daughter. She acquired the house after he passed away. And she also married her husband, William Coleman, right here on the front porch on June 1st, 1920. Other owners of the house have been Carl and Tina Lightfoot, Lieutenant Colonel Al Montgomery, and finally Jimmy and Pat Ann Sylvester. Now they were the ones who actually sold the 5 acres around the house and the house to the settlement. Today we are here with Gudrun Benson, who is our assistant director here at the Pioneer Settlement. She was very highly involved with the renovations that happened here at the house, and I thought it'd be great to have her talk a little bit about what that experience was like. Gudrun?
When we acquired the house in 2004, it had been almost continuously been occupied for about 125 years. That's a very long time for a house to be inhabited. And so over the time, additions and improvements and renovations had been done to the house. Some of them were very obvious, some not so much. One of the first additions to the house most likely was a small bathroom that's here on the north side. It's a little enclosure that it's not quite completely documented, but we assume it was installed once plumbing became available, and so the outhouse became an in-house. We also had occupants who connected the back of the house to what we believe to be the original summer kitchen of the house and made that one big room. It's a little hard to visualize nowadays with all the additions gone, but it was in the manner that what is now visible again as the well, sitting in the living room of the house. That was one of the most obvious additions that have been done to the house. Another one was an interior staircase. Originally the house had an exterior staircase. To make it more convenient for the occupants, the staircase was moved inside. However, when the staircase was installed, a header beam was severed. The header beam right over here. I'm standing right now where the opening for the stairwell was. It ended up on the back porch, on the upper back porch of the house. When that was done, you can see this is the header beam that was severed that we have here, and we kept it for posterity to show how that was done. We found that out when our group of volunteers who started taking all the beautiful additions that had been done to the house, like pressboard paneling and shag carpets and all that good stuff that was the modernization of the house. When they started to tear that apart, they found the support of the stairwell, the staircase, and discovered that the severed header beam was propped up by two 2x4s that were nailed together. At that point, they knew that they needed professional assistance. After we purchased the house, we applied for a grant to Volusia County Council. They have a program that supports organizations in the environmental, cultural, historic, and outdoors programming. The house was deemed an endangered structure by the county preservationist, and the grant was given to us in order to help with the purchase of the property, and we slowly began small steps of restoration. One of the main problems was to weatherproof the house. The roof had been badly deteriorated, the windows were not tight, and the inclement weather was endangering the house even more. So we were able to secure a grant, again through the ECHO program, to put a new roof on the house, stabilize the front porch, whose columns were badly deteriorated and needed to be completely replaced. And so to weatherproof the house and curb further deterioration of the structure. Once we received the grant for the stabilization of the property, work began rather swiftly with A.J. Pfeiffer Construction. They sent a crew out and they tackled the whole project and got it done in about 2016, and which allowed us to open the house on a limited basis to our guests, so we could begin to show the beauty of the house and lay out plans for its future usage. It will come in as a part of our educational programs eventually to showcase the difference between rural lifestyle of farmers and woodsmen like the Lewises, whose log cabin is about the same age as this house, and in contrast to the upper middle class who was able to afford a more substantial dwelling like the one we have here.
As far as what is to be done now, there's a lot of work that is still left to be done on the house. I know that we would love to have some help with that. Is there anything out there we could say to the public to bring them to come and help us and help restore this house to its glory?
We are far way off from the glory of the house. We have made baby steps to bring it back. There's still a lot of work to be done. The chimneys need to be redone. The upper story needs a lot of plaster work. There's also some plaster work that needs to be done here on the first floor. There is traces of modernization that needs to be hidden or restored in a manner that is showable. And I'm particularly thinking of when the house was electrified. The wiring for the electricity was sometimes rather crudely embedded into the plaster and not done always on a very professional level. We would like to be able to climate control the house so we can showcase some of our beautiful furniture that we have acquired over the years, which is perfectly appropriate for the time period, and to give it that lived-in feeling, which climate control would be very beneficial to not only the house but also the furnishings. There's a lot of things that still need to be tackled. We're only barely finished with phase 1. Phase 2 will require another major fundraising effort from the settlement, and hopefully with support from our guests and friends, we'll be able to raise additional monies that will be needed to go upstairs and finish those rooms upstairs, so we can eventually show the structure as it was meant to be lived in.
And so if there's any plasterers out there, let's see, we said carpenters, any painters, anyone out there that would like to donate a little bit of their time and come out and help us to restore this house, we would love to have you get in contact with either Gudrun here at the settlement or Deborah West, our executive director. This house has seen its share of joys and sorrows. One of the wonderful things that I get to do here as the resident storyteller here at the settlement is that I do first-person character interpretation of historical figures. So I did the research on Lucretia Bird Underhill, Joseph's wife, and I was able to put together a program which I perform here as Lucretia on the second Saturdays at the settlement. And just to give you a bit of a taste of Lucretia's story, I thought I'd give you a dabble. Well, I just don't know about all these people that keep showing up at my house. Here it is in 1896. I've had another article put about me in the newspaper. Oh, that Joseph Lichtenstein. Every time I see his name or hear it, I get so angry. Well, you have to understand the whole story about how I've gotten into the predicament that I'm in right now. Oh, a lot of people are telling me I'm a foolish old woman. Well, that may be true, but, Joseph Lichtenstein was this good-looking man with doe eyes, and he came in and sweet-talking me. You see, this was after my Joseph had died. He died here in the house in 1886. I was a woman trying to run an entire farm and sending oranges on up to those places up north like Philadelphia and Trenton and Boston. I couldn't read nor write, so I needed to have somebody help me. Well, Joseph gets in here and he gets a sweet talking me, and well, yes, we ended up getting married, and then all the shenanigans started. Well, to learn about them shenanigans, you're going to have to come and see my performance here at the settlement.
So thank you so much, Joanna, for that wonderful tour of Volusia County's oldest brick home. This house is standing today because we were able to get funding through Volusia County's ECHO grant program. And for that, we are very grateful. Back when we applied for it, we were able to get the funding without having to have a match because it was listed on the endangered properties list for Volusia County. Moving forward, though, the ECHO grant and most grants these days require matching dollars. And that's where you all come in. We need your support. We need to get matching dollars so that we can apply for another ECHO grant or state grant so that we can further continue to preserve this wonderful piece of Volusia County's history. Thanks so much for watching today. Y'all have a great day. Bye.
The music is happening. I can't